So this is week 1 of the FAB course, and this is the long and detailed version where we discuss the hows and whys of breathlessness. We're going to discuss the causes of breathlessness, lots of different strategies for coping with breathlessness, and there's also going to be a section on oxygen. Now, just to remind you, you're in the long and detailed version of the video. It's going to take about an hour, and if you'd like to swap and do the short and snappy video, you're very welcome. I'd very much recommend that you watch this video in stages. You can press pause, obviously, at any time, and you might want to get some paper and make a few notes so that if anything particularly seems relevant to you, you jot it down. Well, we're going to go straight in at the deep end here with a very complicated picture here. It's courtesy of the Cambridge Breathlessness group, and it's really showing how complicated breathlessness is as a sensation. Hopefully, though, when I take you through it, eventually it'll all make sense. So anyone with a lung condition is going to find it difficult to get the oxygen into the body, and so they're going to have to work harder to get the oxygen in, and that inevitably is going to result in breathlessness. Now, some of the breathlessness that someone experiences is going to cause further issues within the chest cavity, within the lungs themselves. Because what happens is when somebody gets breathless, they often change their breathing pattern. Their breathing pattern is altered, so they breathe more with the upper chest, and they start to breathe very shallow, panting breaths. Now, that sort of breathing isn't efficient, it isn't effective at all, and so it actually is counterproductive, and what ends up happening is they find that their breathing gets more difficult, and of course that causes more breathlessness. So this is setting up a vicious cycle which is really difficult to get out of. People often call this dysfunctional breathing, and I used to think that anybody who has dysfunctional breathing must be, they can't have their act together very well. But interestingly enough, about 15 years ago, one of the physiotherapists who worked in the hospital teaching people how to change their breathing patterns back to normal, she herself developed dysfunctional breathing, or sometimes we call it disordered breathing. So this can happen to anybody. It's particularly likely to happen if you've had, say, pneumonia or something where your breathing suddenly gets worse, and so the body tries to adapt to it but just sort of goes wrong in its adaptation and then doesn't go back to the normal breathing afterwards. It's very common with a lot of adults, but particularly in people with ongoing lung disease. Another area that breathlessness affects is the circle down the bottom called functioning. Now, I like to call that deconditioning, really, and you can imagine that what happens if you get really breathless is you find it too difficult to do much activity, so you tend to stay at home, you don't go out so much. In fact, actually, you don't really walk around much at home, and you stay very static, couch potato type existence. And as a result of that, because you're not doing much activity with your muscles, they get weaker and weaker. And also your heart deconditions. Now, this means that the muscles, the breathing muscles, get weaker, and breathing itself gets more difficult. So this is another vicious cycle. Because you're breathless, you don't do much activity, and because you're not doing more activity, you get more breathless. I don't know whether you've seen any notices up around the hospital which say end PJ paralysis, but this was a national movement that started around 2018. People were realising that people who were staying in hospital for quite a few weeks were just sort of sitting in bed most of the time, and because they were sitting in bed most of the time, their muscles were just getting weaker and weaker. They weren't necessarily getting paralysed, but they were sort of practically getting that way. And the evidence shows that just 2 weeks of sitting down, not doing so much, can make your muscles weaker. And so, of course, if you get a chest infection or an exacerbation, you're bound to not do so much for 2 weeks. You're bound to lose a bit of fitness, and it's really difficult to get your fitness back. So I think the key here is use it or lose it. Now we come on to the third circle in this diagram, and it's all about the brain. It's called the thinking cycle, but I like to call it the power of the brain. And it's amazing how much power the brain has and how much control it has over our physical bodies. And we will find out more about this later on in the course, but our thinking affects our feelings, our physical symptoms and our behaviour. You could say, therefore, that our thinking really determines who we are and what sort of life we have. So just to highlight this, the power of the brain is immense. It has so much control. Let me explain. Here's a diagram of the brain, and they've divided the brain into 3 sections. We've got the reptilian brain down the bottom, and then the limbic brain, or the emotional brain, and then the neocortex, or the thinking, rational brain on the top. Now, the reptilian brain is really just helping us survive, and if I put my hand on a hot pan on the hob in the kitchen at home, it would feel hot, I would be at risk of burning my hand, and my automatic reflex would be to just take my hand off. And that's what the reptilian brain does, really. It just sorts out automatic reflexes. It also keeps you breathing and keeps the heart going nicely, so it does do some very good functions. Now, the emotional brain is a very rapid response brain. If we see a mouse going across the floor, we might just scream and react very fast, and that would be our emotional limbic brain kicking in. A few seconds later, we might think to ourselves, hang on a minute, it's only a mouse, we don't need to be scared, and that would be the slower response of the rational thinking neocortex coming in. But the neocortex is slower than the emotional brain. Another example would be, say, if you were driving and somebody cut you up in the car, and you were absolutely furious. How dare they? And you'd be really annoyed, really angry. That would be the limbic, emotional brain's response. You'd think, right, when we stop at the next lights, I'm just going to get out and I'm just gonna, do something bad to them. That would be the emotional response. But hopefully, before you got to the next set of traffic lights, your neocortex thinking brain would kick in and say, this is a bad idea, come on, just relax. Now, why this is important is because the body's internal, there's a bit in the limbic brain that actually works as the body's internal alarm system. And if you're in danger or if there's a drastic situation, then this alarm system goes off. And part of the alarm system is this little green area in there called the amygdala. And the amygdala has a very good memory, and it remembers any situation that you've been in before that was similar, particularly if it was negative. And so maybe somebody's telling you off that, no, they're not telling you off. Let's say they're saying that they don't think the dress that you're wearing is suiting you very well. And they just might say something very gentle like, I don't think this dress suits you as well as the one that you wore yesterday. Just some little comment like that. But if you've had an experience in the past, a really hurtful experience that's caused a lot of emotion, where somebody's criticised the way you dress before, maybe it was your mother or somebody that was really important to you, then the amygdala will remember that, and it will stimulate a real severe internal alarm system reaction. It'll be a sort of code red, and you will suddenly get intensely emotional about it. You'll realise afterwards, when the neocortex kicks in, that maybe your reaction was a little bit over the top. But this internal alarm system setting off is very strong and powerful, and they talk about the amygdala hijack, this amygdala area hijacking the rest of the brain. So The key thing here, you might say, what is the relevance to somebody with a lung condition? Well, unfortunately, sudden, severe breathlessness sets off this internal alarm system in the brain. And as a result of that, different hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, are released, and different nerve impulses are set off, the sympathetic nervous system, and this can very easily cause panic and anxiety. Unfortunately, one of the key results of feeling panic and anxiety is to get breathless. So this is another vicious cycle. You become breathless, the internal alarm system goes off in your brain, you start to feel a bit anxious and panicky, and that causes more breathlessness. It's important to note that even the most sensible, rational, logical, unemotional, normally male engineer, I might like to add, is likely to experience panic and anxiety if they become severely breathless. So you're not going mad in your head, it's just a natural reaction. The internal alarm system releases all these stress hormones and stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, and it causes a lot of other symptoms other than just breathlessness. And this man on the right is highlighting some of them. So you might get palpitations of your heart. You might feel that you can't breathe because of a sort of upper airway in your neck, choking sensation. You might have wobbly legs and feel faint, and there might be a sense of doom or dread coming over you. So I wonder if you notice any of these symptoms when you get acutely breathless. This internal alarm system is causing changes in your body to get you ready to either fight or fly away, flight, or freeze. So if there's a danger to you, you might want to fight it out and actually just kill the situation. You might want to flee away, run away, and that would be flight. Or in some situations, I'm thinking particularly of cats when they see a dog walking down the street, they actually might freeze rather than do anything else. And sometimes we can freeze in a situation. So how can we reduce the panic and anxiety that is almost inevitable when we develop a sudden breathlessness? Well, it's actually very difficult. What we should be trying to do is encouraging our thinking neocortex brain to take over and take control away from our limbic emotional brain. But as I've said before, the internal alarm system is very strong and very powerful, and particularly if the amygdala has been triggered, then it's near impossible to completely switch off this internal alarm system. In fact, these days it's not recommended that you try and suppress or stop the internal alarm system. It just takes too much energy to do this. The recommendations these days are that you're just meant to notice that your internal alarm system has been set off. You're meant to try and view it from the outside and just realise that it will pass, a bit like a wave passing over you when you're in the sea on the beach. You can use different techniques to try and reduce and calm down the alarm system. Focused breathing is very useful, and we'll come on to that in a bit. Using mindfulness and relaxation is another technique, and we will be talking about that in week 2. One of my favourite things to do when I'm feeling really stressed and out of control is to visualise my calm space, and we'll be talking about that as well in week 2. So we've just gone round the various areas that breathlessness impacts on, and it all sounds pretty drastic, doesn't it? There's just so much going on and so much for us to have to deal with. But what we want to do is, when we're acutely breathless, is try and take back control. And I wonder what you do already to minimise your breathlessness. When we've done FAB groups before, people have often said, well, there's nothing I can do. I just have to sit and stay where I am and just wait until I recover. And that's a very good point. Other people say, well, I breathe in through my nose and then out through the mouth. And that's very good advice as well. It's also quite common to hear people say, well, I try and get some fresh air. And again, that actually works, and we'll come on to that later in this video. So how can we take back control then? How can we improve our breathing? Well, first of all, we can try and improve the breathing within the chest. You'll remember that I mentioned that the breathing pattern can often be altered in people who have got an ongoing lung disease. You can learn how to change your breathing style into a more effective, efficient pattern. And you can also learn to slow the breathing, because that is more effective and efficient as well. We can show you different techniques of focusing the breathing, because again that helps slow the breathing and helps you recover from severe breathlessness. We're also going to talk about using a fan and various medication. When we think about breathlessness causing problems with function and deconditioning, then it's very clear that in order to keep this bit going well, we need to keep active. And as we've said before, you need to use it or lose it. You have to remember that moderate breathlessness is good. You shouldn't be afraid of moderate breathlessness. Severe gasping breathlessness isn't so good, but moderate breathlessness is good. So you might like to just make a mental note that to try and move around the house a bit more, or get out of the house more and go and do more activities elsewhere. Pulmonary rehabilitation is perhaps the most effective way at improving your fitness, and usually that's done in groups. People come to the gym and exercise there together, and then have refreshments, and then go on to have some sort of educational component. And that's really, I guess, the gold standard. But if you can't get to a pulmonary rehabilitation class, then you can do exercises at home. Just remember, moderate breathlessness is good, but severe, intolerable breathlessness is not good for you. And then we come on to our thinking cycle, and we've already said quite a bit about this, haven't we? The power of the brain. And we will talk more in other weeks about this. But the key thing here, if you feel that you're getting panicked or anxious, is to just notice your alarm system has gone off. Don't try and react to it. Just notice it as if you're noticing it from afar. And then you can use different techniques that we'll learn about: mindfulness, relaxation, going to your calm space. But the key thing to notice here is, unfortunately, these feelings of anxiety and panic may not just happen when you are acutely breathless, because you'll have ongoing thoughts about how your breathing is going to impact your day, and your ongoing thoughts and feelings are going to have an impact on your breathing throughout the whole day. So this is the real practical bit. That was all the background, the theory as it were, and we're now going to get practical and look at the different things that you can do to ease your breathing when it's really bad. Well, the first thing is to maximise the power of each breath. Do you remember that when we looked at this aspect of the diagram, we noticed that that it's very common that your breathing pattern will have changed over the years as a result of your lung disease. And we can look at your breathing style and the timing of your breath. So if we look at your breathing style, I think you'll probably find that you're breathing a lot from your upper chest, because that's what most adults do, and particularly people with a lung disease. And that isn't a very good way of breathing. It doesn't work very well. And for the effort that you put in, you only pick up a small amount of oxygen and take that into the blood. Now, all babies and a few adults breathe with their lower chest. This is often called diaphragmatic or tummy breathing, and this is the most efficient type of breathing. You pick up maximum oxygen from the air for minimum effort if you use this sort of breathing pattern. So I wonder, how do you breathe? So it's probably worthwhile now just taking a few moments to try and work out what your pattern of breathing is. You might like to shut your eyes and take a few deep breaths in and out. Where are you breathing from? You might want to put one hand at the top of your chest, just under your neck, and the other hand at the top of your tummy. Take a breath in. Which bit is moving more? So this diagram here will help you work out whether you are breathing in your upper chest or whether you're breathing from your diaphragm. This diagram calls it belly breathing. If you felt your upper hand moving particularly when you breathed in, if you felt your shoulders rising and you felt a bit taller when you breathed in, then you're probably using your upper chest to breathe. If when you breathe in you can feel your tummy going out a lot, then you are probably using your diaphragm to breathe. Now the diaphragm is a very powerful muscle, it's very efficient, it doesn't tire, and it's the one that we should be using naturally to breathe. But the thing is, often we've changed the pattern of our breathing and we've started using what's called accessory muscles, ones in the upper chest and in the neck. And that's fine just to use them for a short time, perhaps when we're running for a bus or something, to recover afterwards. But the problem is that often people with a lung condition have learnt to use these muscles the whole time. And these muscles aren't strong, they fatigue very quickly. And more than that, if you use them the whole time, they get really stiff and sore because they've been overused. Now, people with COPD may find it very difficult to try and do diaphragmatic breathing. So if that's the case, just do not worry. There'll be lots of other techniques that you can use instead. If you want to learn more and practice diaphragmatic breathing, there's a very good YouTube video on the internet. It's from the States, and the lady speaks with a very American accent. She says exhale in a very funny way. I can't quite remember how she says it, but it sort of slightly put me off when I was watching it, but it's such a good video. I think it's worth watching. So you can put into a search engine, diaphragmatic breathing Michigan. Often people talk about the 3 R's of relaxed diaphragmatic breathing. If you just lie down, not lie flat, but just lie or lean back in a chair and put your hand on your tummy, what you want to do is just, when you breathe in, you want to feel the tummy rising, and then as you breathe out and relax, the tummy will just drop back again, and then you want to rest for a little while before the next in-breath. You want the tummy to rise, and then you want to relax and the tummy drop, and then rest. So that's the first practical thing that you can do, change your breathing style. But having said that, it's probably one of the more difficult things to do, and it takes an awful lot of practice, but it's worth it. It's more easy to change your breathing style if your lung disease isn't too severe. So if you're somebody that isn't finding that you're too limited by your lung disease at this stage, then changing your breathing pattern to diaphragmatic breathing would be well worthwhile. It might be more difficult if you've got very severe lung disease. So that's the breathing style. Now we're going to come on to talk about the timing of your breath, because it's really important to note that shallow, rapid breathing isn't nearly as good as deep, slow breathing. One of the best ways to slow breathing is to make sure that you breathe out fully. And this is also very useful if you've got COPD, because it prevents breath stacking, which I'll explain in a minute. So this is a diagram that explains why breathing fast is not good for you. On the left-hand side, we've got arrows which are meant to represent somebody breathing in slowly and then breathing out slowly. And because they breathe in slowly, the air can go down to the outside of the lungs before it comes out again. If you breathe rapidly, there's no time really for the air to get right down, so it sort of just goes half down and then comes out again. Well, you might say, does this matter? Well, yes, it does. The stars that are red show the areas of the lung where oxygen is taken up. So if you don't get the air right into the outside bits of the lung, very little oxygen is going to be taken up. The areas with the blue stars are just tubes. They're just connecting tubes, and they don't do anything. They don't take anything out of the air. They don't collect oxygen or anything. And in medicine, we call that the dead space. It's not dead, obviously. The muscles and the ligaments and the tubes are alive, but we call it dead because nothing happens there. So you can see why you don't want to take rapid, shallow breaths. You want to take nice, slow, deep breaths to maximise your breathing. One of the best ways to take a deep breath is to breathe out fully beforehand, because if you breathe out fully beforehand, then naturally you're going to take a big breath in. And often when people are breathless, they just focus very much on the in-breath, but that's not right. What they should ideally do is focus on breathing out fully, because the in-breath will take care of itself naturally. Now, this is a slightly complicated picture here that represents what happens if you don't breathe out fully. And if you haven't got a lung condition, if you're just watching this with someone else, you might like to try and do this along with me, and you'll realise how uncomfortable it gets. So if we start in the top left-hand corner where that red asterisk is, you'll see the smallest set of lungs. If we breathe in, our lungs expand. And now just breathe out half. Do you see that the lungs haven't come back to the previous size? Breathe in again. And then just half breathe out. Do it once more. Breathe in. And out. Just breathe out half. Now, I don't know if anybody is doing this with me, but I'm feeling really uncomfortable now as my lungs are extra expanded, hyper expanded, and it's really uncomfortable. And I'm just going to now breathe out fully because it's just very unpleasant. That's how somebody with COPD or asthma feels when they get really out of breath. This is a representation of the same thing on a graph. You can see the blue line there, and that represents normal breathing. You breathe in, and then you breathe out. You breathe in, and you breathe out. And the lung volumes do go up and down as you breathe in and out, but they don't change over time. If you don't breathe out fully, then as you can see, you follow that grey line. Every breath in goes up, but every breath out doesn't drop you back to your baseline, and you start to hyperinflate, and it's very uncomfortable. So this is called breath stacking, and the key thing here to stop this happening is to focus on the out breath and breathe out fully. Now, just a note, breath stacking occurs a lot in patients with COPD and asthma, but not people with lung fibrosis so much. So if you've got lung fibrosis, you don't need to worry about this so much. It is, however, still important to focus on the out breath and slow your breathing down. So this is the second practical tip that we've got for managing acute sudden breathlessness. You really want to slow your breathing down as much as possible, and you want to make sure that you fully blow out. Some people talk about the SOS for coping with severe sudden breathlessness. The first S can stand for a number of things. It can just stand for stop what you're doing, but I think most people would do that naturally. You could try and tell yourself to stay calm and not react too much to that internal alarm system that has been set off. Or you could alternatively try and drop your shoulders because that way you'll be using less of your upper chest to breathe, and it'll be more efficient for you. The O stands for breathing out, and I think by now you know how important that is. And then the second S is to remind you to slow the breathing down. So the next tip that we're going to come to is all about focusing the breathing. And this is a very common one. People tend to know to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. We like people to breathe in through the nose because the air, when it goes through the nose, gets warmed and humidified, and that's much more acceptable and easier for the lungs to deal with lower down. If you'll notice the man in the picture, he's breathing in for the count of 2 and out for the count of 4. And I'm so pleased about that because he'll be getting all his out breath out. And so when he breathes in again, the air will go right down to the outsides of the lungs where the oxygen can be taken up easily. Now, pursed lip breathing is something that's very useful for people with COPD and asthma, not quite so useful for people with lung fibrosis. Some people just do it naturally. Other people learn how to do it and find it beneficial but have to deliberately do it. And I'll just explain what pursed lip breathing is all about. So the lady on the left is breathing without using pursed lips, and the man on the right is using pursed lip breathing. And you only really need to think about using pursed lips if your breathing is really severe and you're gasping for breath and you're struggling. And if you're struggling, you're using a lot of muscles, and the muscles, when you breathe out, will be pressing in on the chest, and they'll be squashing some of the lung tissue. They'll be squashing the tubes, and sometimes they'll squash the tubes so much that the air won't be able to come out, and so there'll be air left at the edges of the lungs that can't get out. Well, we've said before that it's the air at the outside in the alveoli that's important for getting the oxygen into the body, and if you're not actually exchanging that air for fresh air with oxygen each breath, you're not going to do so well. Now, the man on the right is still working hard and using his muscles and squashing the chest, squashing the lung tissue when he breathes out. But you can see that his tubes at the bottom there, although they're being squashed, they're not actually compressing. And that's because he's using pursed lips. He's narrowing his lips there, and that's creating a resistance. And as a result of that, it's a sort of physics really, the pressure in the lungs is increased. There's back pressure in the airways. So that means that there's pressure in those little tubes that's pushing out against the pressure that's trying to squash them, and so the airways stay open. So if you use pursed lip breathing, you're going to find that your breath is more efficient and you're less likely to get air trapping and breath stacking. Often when people talk about breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, they talk about smelling the roses and flickering the candle. And they're just flickering the candle rather than blowing it out fully because they're using their pursed lip breathing. So that's the first style of focused breath. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So the next type of focused breathing we're going to talk about is breathing round a rectangle. And I think, if nothing else, this is probably one of the best things that you can do when you're gasping for breath. You need to look around the place where you are, whether you're inside or outside. I think it's slightly easier to find a rectangle inside. There may be a door or a window. You may see a mirror. Actually, thinking about it, a mirror wouldn't be quite such a good idea because you don't really want to look at yourself whilst you're gasping for breath. That wouldn't be so helpful. You could use your mobile phone or a magazine or the TV, a computer screen, anything that is a rectangle shape. You definitely don't want a square. And the idea is that you force yourself in a way to look at the outside, the perimeter of this rectangle whilst you're gasping for breath. And you start to breathe in along the short edge and out along the long edge. And the idea is that because it's a rectangle and that the long edge is longer, that'll remind you to breathe in and then out and out along the long edge, and that will help you breathe out fully, and it will help your breath slow down. So for people with COPD or asthma, we tend to recommend they breathe in and then out and out, in, out and out. Whereas for people with lung fibrosis, it's better to breathe in, out and relax. In, out and relax. And as I say, the idea is that you gradually slow down the transfer round the rectangle so that you're gradually slowing your breathing. Another idea to focus your breathing and to just slow and calm the breathing down is to use this poem. I don't think this poem is quite so popular as the rectangular breathing, but I certainly can think of quite a few people who have come back and said, wow, that poem is brilliant. I've got it written out all round the house now. It's just great. One thing I would say, though, is if you're the partner of somebody who's got a severe breathing problem, don't just yourself read out this poem to them, almost dictating what they should do, because I don't think anybody would like that. So this has got to use the poem if it's right for you. So the poem goes, be still, be calm, drop the shoulders. Slowly sigh out and out. That's interesting, isn't it? Out and out. We know a lot about breathing out and out. Hear the sigh. Soft and quiet. Now that's interesting because the sigh is another way of increasing resistance in the upper airways. So do you remember we talked about pursed lip breathing? Meaning that the small airways are less likely to collapse down. If you sigh out, you'll also find that the breathing is more efficient. And you can see tennis players, can't you, grunting and sighing on Wimbledon, and they're using this very technique. So hear the sigh. Soft and quiet. Feel control returning. Peaceful and safe. To be honest, when I read that bit about the control returning peaceful and safe, it seems more like a hope than anything else. But, you're trying to encourage yourself to just stay calm and return to a peaceful state. So that's another 2 different techniques that you can use to focus the breathing around a rectangle and using that poem. The next tip we have for easing your breath is using a fan. I used to think this was a bit of mumbo-jumbo really, but there is good research that shows that cooling the face by just putting a bit of a wind across it stimulates the trigeminal nerve, and that this can reduce the sensation of breathlessness in the brain. So you want to get into a comfortable position, and then you hold the fan about sort of half a foot or 15 centimetres away from your face. And you want to aim the air, particularly round your nose and your mouth area, and just move it from side to side. Some people find that actually if they wet their face slightly, just make it moist and damp with a flannel before they put the fan there, then it's more effective because it feels colder. So you might want to just keep a slightly damp flannel in a plastic bag near your fan, and then you can just sort of slightly dampen the face before using the fan. There's a very good video on the use of a handheld fan, and it's an Australian video. And you can search online, just put in a search engine, handheld fan, lung foundation, Australia video. So do try out using a fan because a lot of people find it really effective. Our last tip for managing acute severe breathlessness is to use medication to ease the symptom. Clearly, if you've got COPD or asthma or bronchiectasis, you might be on inhalers or nebulizers, and you could take those. Other people may be on oxygen, and some people find that if they get acutely breathless, they're able to start using their oxygen, or they're able to turn the oxygen up. But only do that if it's been recommended for you to do that. Turning the oxygen up, if you haven't been told to, could actually be quite harmful and dangerous. The 2 medicines that we're going to focus on in this section are morphine and lorazepam, and I don't know whether you have heard anything about these before. Morphine comes in 2 main types. It comes in a liquid, which is called Oromorph, and that acts very fast. It only takes I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to kick in, sometimes shorter, and it only lasts a few hours. And you tend to use the Oromorph if you're gasping for breath at the time, or if you think you're going to do something that is going to cause you to get breathless, you might want to take it ahead of time in anticipation. The other type of morphine is slow-release tablets, and they're usually called MST or Zomorph. They act very slowly, they take a few hours to kick in, and they last 12 hours, so people tend to take them regularly every 12 hours. I'm going to use this graph to show you how the Oromorph and the slow-release morphine, the MST, gets into the blood and how long it stays for. So that area of yellow there represents the ideal blood level of morphine to help with breathlessness. And if the level's too low, then it's really not going to help with your breathlessness. And if it's too high, it's not going to be any better for you, but you're going to have an increased risk of side effects. And as you can see, a whole 24 hours goes past as we go from left to right. So if you took some Oromorph liquid at 8 o'clock in the morning, within about 15 minutes it would come into the right level in the body, in the blood, for it to be easing your breathlessness. But by the time 12 o'clock comes, it will have gone and not had any further effect. Whereas the slow-release morphine, if taken at 8 o'clock, might not actually kick in until sort of 10 o'clock, and then it would last and stay at the right level in the body until just after 8 o'clock at night. Here, somebody might have taken their Oromorph at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to help with sudden severe breathlessness. Somebody here might have taken their Oromorph at 9:30 because they think, OK, I'm going to start getting up and getting dressed and having a wash at 10 o'clock. That often causes me breathlessness. I'll take my Oromorph half an hour ahead just to ease the symptoms of breathlessness. So, when using Oromorph liquid, you can either use it when needed or use it ahead of time in anticipation. When using the morphine slow-release tablets, people tend to take it first thing in the morning and 12 hours later. So this person has taken it at 8 in the morning and at 8 p.m. and you can see that it ensures that there's good blood levels of morphine throughout the day and the night. So you tend to take the morphine slow-release tablets regularly every 12 hours. And to be honest, most people start on Oromorph for breathlessness and just add in the morphine slow-release tablets if need be later. So what are the potential side effects of morphine? Well, to be honest, the dose of morphine that we give for breathlessness is so low, it's not even worthwhile trying to sell the morphine on the black market, to be honest. It's so low, it's of no significance, and it causes very few side effects normally. Potentially you could feel a bit sick or nauseous. You could get constipation if you're using loads of it, but I think it's very unlikely at this low level. You might experience a dry mouth. Probably the most likely side effect that you might experience is a bit of drowsiness and sleepiness. And I'd definitely say that when you try out morphine for the first time, make sure that you're at home in a relaxed place and you don't need to get out to go to some event that's important, because there's a chance that it might make you go a bit drowsy and sleepy. Can you drive with morphine? Well, you can, but you have to be careful because, as we've said, it can cause drowsiness. But if you've taken it on several days and you've found that it hasn't caused any drowsiness, then it's okay to drive as long as you're not taking a higher dose than normal. Can you drink alcohol? Well, yes, you can. There's no problem here at all. But of course, alcohol is also going to make you a bit drowsy potentially. And so if you take a lot of alcohol and a lot of morphine, that could be potentially dangerous because you could go very drowsy. Some people worry that they might get addicted to morphine. After all, morphine is the same compound as heroin. But just to reassure you, the dose of morphine that we're using here is very small and it's not going to cause addiction. Another concern that some people have is they read the information sheet thoroughly and it says that you shouldn't take morphine if you have any breathing problems. Don't worry about that. That's just really talking about very large doses, and you know these drug companies, they just have to cover themselves completely by writing everything out in full. So the second medicine that you might like to consider trying is Lorazepam. Now, Lorazepam is a sort of similar compound to diazepam, and it's normally used to treat anxiety. But it's also been shown to be effective in reducing the feeling of out-of-control breathlessness. You don't tend to take Lorazepam regularly, although you can. For breathlessness, you normally take it when needed for severe, sudden breathlessness. Lorazepam comes in 1 milligram tablets, but you only need 0.5 milligram for breathlessness. So what people tend to do is they tend to cut with a knife the tablets in half ahead of time and then just keep them in a little pot. You can swallow the Lorazepam and just take it like a normal tablet, but it's it works faster and more effective if you take it sublingually. This means that you're putting the tablet under your tongue and just letting it dissolve there. So, what are the potential side effects of Lorazepam? Well, there's only one main one, and that's drowsiness and sleepiness. So a bit like when taking Oromorph for the first time, it's worthwhile just being at home and not needing to go anywhere before you take the Lorazepam, and just see whether there's any side effects. But most people don't get any side effects from Lorazepam, not at this dose. Driving, we don't really recommend that if you've taken Lorazepam, you drive. If you're very used to it and you take it regularly, then that might be a bit different, but you've got to be slightly more careful driving and taking Lorazepam. And again, like with morphine, alcohol's fine to take, but just make sure you don't take too much. Well, you might say, can I take morphine and Lorazepam together? Well, you can. I wouldn't recommend starting straight away taking them together, because you don't know if they're going to both cause drowsiness and they will sort of, add on to each other's effect. But they work in a different way, and so, you might say you might have developed severe breathlessness. You might have done your focused breathing and trying to stay calm, slowly breathing out and out. But say, your breathlessness doesn't improve with all that. You might want to take a bit of Oromorph, wait 15 minutes, and if nothing improves, then take the Lorazepam, and that's absolutely fine, because they work in different ways on different parts of the brain, and so that would be very effective, I think. But again, just make sure that you take them first separately to make sure you don't have an adverse reaction. So that's the end of our list of strategies that can help ease acute, sudden, severe breathlessness. So what I'd recommend is that you try out these different strategies and work out which ones are best for you. And then you can create a sort of action plan, a list of what to do when you get really breathless. And this is an example of an action plan. You might want to tell yourself to focus on the breathing, do some rectangle breathing, slow the breathing down, focus on the out breath and drop your shoulders. You might want to remind yourself to use the fan. And then, if it's no better, in 10 minutes you could take your Oromorph liquid. Wait 15 minutes, and if you're no better at that point, then take the Lorazepam, 1/2 tablet under the tongue. And then if you're still no better in 15 minutes, then you might want to call for a medical assistance. Don't forget that it may be worthwhile adding in an extra step of taking oxygen, or your inhalers, or your nebulizers. So now we're going to talk about a different topic for a little bit, oxygen, because we often have a lot of questions about oxygen on the course, and I think it would be useful for you. So people use oxygen at home for a number of different reasons, and people either take it using nasal cannulae or a face mask. When you're having oxygen at home, normally it's generated in an oxygen concentrator. This is a machine that pulls in air and takes the nitrogen out of the air, leaving pretty pure oxygen, which can then be piped to you. The machine doesn't have to sit right next to the grandfather and his granddaughter, as is depicted here. It can be sort of stored further away, and you can have quite long piping round the house. You never know when your oxygen concentrator is going to break down, so people tend to have an oxygen cylinder as well to use for emergencies. If you're using oxygen out of the house, then clearly you're not going to be able to carry round one of those oxygen concentrators, which needs to be plugged into the wall, and those cylinders are very heavy and cumbersome. So people tend to be given a portable oxygen concentrator that can either be carried on their shoulder, a bit like a handbag, or can be put in a little trolley that you pull along behind you. These do the same thing. They pull in air and take the nitrogen out of it, and then enable you to take in pure oxygen via the tubing. Here's a couple of pictures of people using portable oxygen out and about. Liquid oxygen is another type of oxygen that we can give. It's particularly beneficial if you're needing high flow oxygen, and this picture suggests that if you use liquid oxygen you're going to have a lovely romantic time on a sunny beach. It's amazing what adverts do, isn't it? So liquid oxygen is slightly more complicated. You have a great big canister that is often kept in the garage, although this lady seems to have it at the bottom of the stairs, and that contains liquid compressed oxygen. And then in order to go out and use the oxygen out and about, you decant a little bit of the oxygen off into these smaller devices, and the smaller devices sort of click in a special way onto the top, and then you press a button to release the liquid oxygen so that it goes into the small canister. Now, a lot of people say, why can't I have oxygen? Nobody has given me any oxygen. Why hasn't anyone given me oxygen? And it's important to note that not everyone is going to be helped by oxygen. You only really need oxygen if you have very low oxygen levels. If you have low oxygen levels the whole time, then having oxygen throughout most of the day, at least 15 hours, will help protect against heart complications and could actually enable you to live longer and better. If you have oxygen levels that are okay just at rest, but they drop when you walk, then it's useful for you to just have oxygen when you're out and about walking and doing activity. And that will mean that you're more likely to be able to do more action and you're able to walk for longer. That doesn't do anything long term. It doesn't make you live longer or anything, but it, again, makes you live better. If your oxygen levels are just slightly low, then you're not going to benefit from oxygen. You need them to be really quite low until we give you oxygen. And in order to know whether you would benefit from oxygen or not, we do what's called capillary blood gas sampling from the ear, and we use an oximeter. We use the blood gas from the ear to tell us whether you need oxygen sort of long term throughout most of the day, and we use the SATS probe to determine how low your oxygen goes when you're walking around doing things. So, if you have low oxygen levels the whole time, then you would benefit from LTOT, it's called long-term oxygen therapy, which aims to stabilise the oxygen levels for at least 15 hours out of each 24-hour period. And if you just have low oxygen levels when you're active doing things, then we would give you ambulatory oxygen. There's one other type of oxygen that we sometimes give people, and that's just oxygen overnight. If for some reason when you sleep you breathe far less and the oxygen goes down just overnight. It's really important for you to know that oxygen can be harmful. It's a medicine and it needs to be prescribed properly, and it's really important that you don't change the amount of oxygen you're taking. Sometimes we advise that you increase the dose of oxygen when you're out and about doing things, and that's fine, but don't just change it off your own back. Do what the oxygen nurse practitioners tell you, because increasing the oxygen can actually be harmful. You see, when you give too much oxygen, it can actually switch off the breathing control centre in the brain, and that will then reduce your breathing. The brain will think, oh, I've got plenty of oxygen, I don't need to breathe. And so you'll stop breathing, and it could go down to a critical level where the waste gas, the carbon dioxide, can't get out. And when that occurs, you've gone into what's called acute type 2 respiratory failure, and that can be very dangerous. About 20 years ago, it was very common for people with lung disease to be given loads of oxygen in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And we used to find that people had got worse by the time they got to hospital than they were at home, because they'd been given too much oxygen and that had reduced their breathing. Now everyone is very aware of this, and if you've got a particular lung condition that is liable to be risky, where there's a risk of you developing type 2 respiratory failure, then the paramedics and ambulance workers will keep your oxygen controlled and at a low level. The key thing, though, is if you develop new symptoms of a headache, disorientation, confusion, drowsiness, or just generally being weird, then it really could be that you've developed this acute type 2 respiratory failure. And so if you're on oxygen and you develop those symptoms, then you need to seek medical attention immediately. The other thing to note is that oxygen can be really dangerous, and this is a picture of a house in Sheffield, and this is just in the last few weeks. I looked on the internet, and this was the article that came up. This lady this lady unfortunately died, and it's because oxygen aids combustion. You've got to make sure that your oxygen is kept away from any naked flame or any hairspray or even Vaseline. You mustn't have anything like that around, because the oxygen isn't going to just set itself on fire, but the oxygen causes the Vaseline to just combust and go on fire. If you want more information about oxygen, then you can always go to the Air Liquide site. Our area here in Derbyshire is serviced by Air Liquide. And then you can also go to the British Lung Foundation site. They have a whole load of information on lots of things that are relevant to people with lung disease, and their oxygen section is very good. Alternatively, you can contact the Impact Plus team and talk to one of our specialist oxygen nurses. So, we've talked a lot about how you can ease and control breathlessness when it's really acute. But if you want to improve your breathing long term, then the real important thing is to do regular moderate exercise. And you'll remember this bit of the breathless diagram. If you don't do activity, your muscles are going to get weak, and your heart is going to get deconditioned, and your breathing actually is going to get worse. So, yeah, there's a number of different types of exercise that you might want to consider. You could do some home exercises, and there's various sheets and protocols that you can use. You could try an armchair cycling device like the gentleman in the picture here is using. He's not sitting in an armchair and cycling, but you can actually sit in armchairs and use this device. And it just means that you're moving your feet round whilst you're sitting in a chair watching TV or something. If you've got a dog, you could walk the dog. Even if you're just going a short way, the dog, I'm sure, would like it. And as I've mentioned before, pulmonary rehabilitation is probably the best way possible of improving your overall fitness. And this is a 6-week course which you attend twice a week, so you attend 12 weeks in total. But before doing the course, you're assessed, and they work out your fitness level and the best weights to use, and the best bike settings, etc., etc. And they gradually, week by week, ramp up the exercise so you're getting fitter and fitter. I like to think of it as sort of boot camp, and I think it is quite a commitment and quite an effort, but you know, they say no pain, no gain, and I think if you really want to get as fit as possible and maximise your health, then pulmonary rehab is definitely the best way to go. It's really nice being part of a group. There's a bit of camaraderie there, and after the exercise sessions you have a break, have a cup of tea, coffee, and then you go into an education session, so you learn a lot about different lung diseases and different ways of managing them, as well as doing the exercise. But it doesn't have to be strict home exercises or pulmonary rehab. You could just do more gardening outside, or you could take up slow dancing, anything really that keeps you active. And you'll remember me mentioning that moderate breathlessness is good, but severe, intolerable breathlessness is not so good. So the question is, what is moderate? Well, this is called the Borg scale, and really when you're doing some sort of activity, you're going to get a bit breathless or fatigued, and you might just feel minimal breathlessness, very light, number one, or just light, number two, or it might be absolutely extreme and you can't imagine it getting much worse. That would be number 9. Moderate breathlessness on this scale is anything between level 3, which is moderate, and level 6, which is more severe. So you want to keep at that moderate level, not at a real severe extreme level, because as we'll learn in week 2, if you go to that extreme level of breathlessness, it's just going to actually worsen the situation for you. I feel I should mention at this point that if anybody does smoke and is thinking of quitting, then it's worthwhile stopping smoking even if you have severe lung disease. Indeed, even if you've got lung cancer, the evidence is good for giving up smoking. People who stop smoking just a couple of weeks before an operation are less likely to have any post-op complications. So definitely, if you're just thinking about quitting, I would suggest go for it. The key information, though, is that you're far more likely to succeed if you use some medication to help. That's normally nicotine replacement therapy. And if you get some human support from experts, that would be either sort of texts or a phone call from somebody. If you do both those things, you're going to have a much greater success rate. So it really is a no-brainer using these support services. For people in Derby City, there is Live Well Derby, who offers a great stop smoking service, and people who live in the Derbyshire County area, then it's Live Life Better Derbyshire, and there I've got their details on there. So next week we'll talk more about controlling your breathing when you're doing activities. But for now, we've really finished our presentation, and I've just got a couple of slides here on where you can find out more information. For example, there's the Cambridge Breathlessness Intervention site, and I have to say that a lot of the ideas in this presentation came from there. And then the St Christopher's Hospice have got 4 absolutely brilliant short videos on breathlessness, and I'd really recommend you look at them. Please don't be put off that it says hospice on it. They're just such good videos. They will just be great for you. I've mentioned the British Lung Foundation already, and then there's the Respiratory Physiotherapy UK site that's got some other information there. If you're finding it difficult getting up sputum, then it would be well worth learning the active cycle of breathing technique, and you can either talk to one of the Impact Plus respiratory physiotherapists, or there's a very good video online explaining the technique, or there's an information sheet there for you to look up. So that's if you're getting lots of phlegm and you just are finding it sticks in your throat and you can't get it up and you're sort of practically choking on it. The other thing is, if you want to improve your activity level and keep those muscles going, use it, don't lose it, then you might want to join pulmonary rehabilitation, and those are the details there. And there's some very good home exercises on the British Lung Foundation site. And just to let you know that if you have got a concern about your breathing or any question, then the Impact Plus has a lung line that's open 7 days a week from 8:30 to 4:30, and the number is there. And that's it for this week. Next week we'll be focusing on fatigue. I hope you found this presentation useful and enjoyable. I realise there's been a lot to take in. I hope you've taken some notes, and look forward to meeting up again next time.